Okay, I said I was going to go into more of chapter 1 on Debra355's book. This is a kind of an autobiography of a girl who lived in California, fell in love with an actor, yada yada yada. And now she's come back 8 years later and just visiting old haunts and places she used to work, and we kind of like take it up in the middle. So I left off about, now you'd have to read it. But where she smiles again, thanks to Stephen, she thought, smiled again. Moving on. Her eyes dropped curbside to the kick line of newspaper cubicles. Los Angeles Times, Herald Examiner, USA Today. And 3 mailboxes squeezed so tightly into the group they'd be turning blue if they weren't already. Someone honked an impatient, "Hey, let's go," as the light greened. So she made a quick perusal of the stores along her right side. Myers Insurance, Hetty's Sewing Shop, not even vaguely familiar. But that didn't mean they weren't. She may have just never noticed. Looking but not seeing, she'd been good at that. Still was. 2 blocks down, on the corner of Lexington, Rummel's Business Machines. Now that she did know. An ailing machine had been metal to an alchemist in D.B. Rummel's mummified digits. Bald, visored, and not much taller than Danny DeVito. D.B. had ministered to their office equipment like they were all his offspring, and he appreciated a person who personified. "You are very good to this old vetty young lady. She's very clean, no dust, no paper clips. She likes that." D.B. shop, like D.B., were it not for the accent, belonged in a Dickens novel. Dusty, cramped with a not unpleasant scent of oil and cleaning compounds. Flap, flap, flap. That's supposed to be wind. The sudden insouciance of Shillelagh's emerald awnings caught her eye. God, it was still there. Shillelgh's. She took a long, deep breath. If restaurants could sing, the Inquirer could sure scrape some octaves off the walls in there, her own included. And the eats had been heavenly, too. The vegetarian platter was this close to orgasmic. Carrots, mushrooms, onions, green and red peppers on a bed of rice smothered with cheddar and served with a side of garlic bread. It had been her only foray into hedonism. Well, until Stephen, anyway. And right now it was damn Bermuda's glutting the air that was making her mouth water. Forget food, Danny, she thought, when she licked her lips. You didn't come here to reacquaint yourself with food. Not orally, anyway. More visually. Think concrete. Like the huge mass of it across the street that they called the Lutheran Church. It was still piously praying over the corner of Lexington and Broadway. "Next one hell of a great shade tree," Katie'd always said. "This office would be hell in the summer without it." It also made one hell of a great monument. 2 blocks long, a half block wide, and completely surrounded by a cinder block wall. And as often as she'd cut through the hollowed grounds on her walk to and from work, she was never able to remember much more than a vague square of lawn, some trees, and an unholy fortune in cement and glass. The afternoon she ripped around the corner and almost plowed into the arms of that bum was a lot clearer. Disheveled and drunk, he'd been just as startled, but it was her eyes that roiled at the whiff she got of the poor guy's breath. His eyes were like eggs, yellow, rheumy, and veined with ketchup. "Sorry, girls," he'd mumbled in an almost gentlemanly way. "Didn't mean to startle you." She flashed on a sudden subliminal of an inebriated William Powell as the thin man, listing in front of her, gradually wobbled away. "No problem, Nicky," she murmured, and mentally stuffed her ventricles back into her chest. Slowing the car to a creep, she gazed reverently at the 2-story multicolored brick kneeling along the east side of the Luths. Her heart suddenly thumped again. Lou Amory's rare recordings. She'd never been to New Orleans, but the store suited the Mardi Gras image like a wet t-shirt. Black wrought iron railings curlicued around the 4 front corners. 8 brass carriage lamps, 4 on the upper level, 4 on the lower, ornamented the face. Dormer windows, 3 of them, on the ground level, and 3 sets of French doors framed with black shutters opened onto the second-floor balcony. When weather permitted, about 350 days of the year, she'd been one of the few to spend her lunch hours sitting out on that balcony. Sylvie Marmolejo had always thought that a hoot. The Canuck thinks she's getting fresher air. This is LA County, Danny, not Marlboro country. Smiling, she braked at the asphalt alley separating church from store and flicked on the left signal. Chivalry would take a while. Opposing traffic was heavy. She snuck a quick glance to the second story, half expecting her own image to be waving back at her. Until the day she died, she would remember every crack and seam in the kitchen, linoleum, and every thread of the rusty tweed that floored those second-floor offices, as vividly as the pores on her face. While not a convivial morning person, those pristine early hours had always been her favorite. Monday through Friday, as reliable as smog, she'd arrive at the store a good hour before anybody else. She'd key off the alarm, count up the cash left in the register for the morning crew by the evening crew, $65, give or take a cent. Then she'd head up to the kitchen. The MJV would be perking, and the dirty dishes from the previous day would be drying off in their Rubbermaid rack by the time anyone else showed up. Her mother would have thought that was worth a Polaroid. At home, she washed dishes about as often as Leona Helmsley made a bed, and at the office, though, it was different. It was stepping away for a few minutes from the typing, calculating, and constant phones to do the dishes were like playing hooky and getting paid for it. Nobody ever said anything when you're in the kitchen washing dishes rather than sitting at your desk. Probably because no one else wanted to do them, or they hadn't figured out the hooky angle yet. So that's it. Scatty, are you asleep now, my children? That's a little part of part 1. I'm into chapter 1. That's page 3, and I got 371 more to go. So smoke 'em if you got 'em. I'll be back.